Randolph Charles Bachman was born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, growing up as the eldest of 4 children in a humble Canadian prairie household. His father, Carl, known as Charlie Bachman, had German roots, and his mother, Anne, Nancy Dobrinsky, was of Ukrainian descent. This mixed heritage filled the Bachman home with a rich blend of cultural influences, though it was music that truly captivated young Randy. In fact, he first found his musical footing not with a guitar, but with a violin. He started violin lessons at the tender age of 3 and continued diligently through childhood.
It gets music in your heart and soul, and when you play violin, you play one thing, melody.
Yeah.
So it taught me melody.
By his early teens, however, a different stringed instrument had stolen his heart.
It's the greatest instrument in the world. It's the only instrument you embrace. You put your arms around it, you hold it next to you, your heart and soul, your chest, you breathe it. You can take it around the world. There's big, there's small guitars. It's with you all the time. You can take it everywhere you go.
I look up, the whole audience's heads have snapped toward the stage. They go, oh, this is a pretty good riff. Went to #1 album and single in the world in 1970.
I know that Bachman Turner Overdrive was a role model for a lot of artists who followed. It gave Canadians the chance to say, we can do that too.
I get asked all the time, what is it with Canadians? You know, where does all this talent come from?
At the age of 15, Randy experienced what he would later describe as a life-changing moment, seeing Elvis Presley perform on television. It was a typical evening in the late 1950s when Elvis's electrifying presence on the Tommy Dorsey Show beamed into the Bachman living room.
This young fellow we saw for the first time while making a movie short, we think tonight that he's going to make television history for you. We'd like you to meet him now, Elvis Presley, and here he is.
Well, get out of that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans.
As Elvis swaggered with a guitar slung over his shoulder, young Randy was transfixed. He felt an instant spark. In that moment, the violin recitals and regimented lessons lost their allure. Rock and roll was calling.
What is the blues? What is classical music? What is classic rock? I think classic rock, to do a total embodiment, is everything that kind of came out of the early to mid 60s and ended in the middle to late 70s. It's guys like me that were born in the 40s that were taking what Elvis and the Beatles had done, which was singles and pop music, because in the old days, you'd only hear of an artist with their single that got on the radio, then the next single, and then you'd hear, oh, they have an album.
Randy often quips that seeing Elvis with a guitar made him want to trade in the fiddle for a 6-string on the spot. He soon learned a few basic chords from a cousin and cobbled together a makeshift guitar, determined to make the kind of exciting sounds he had fallen in love with. Another stroke of fortune in Randy's youth was crossing paths with a local guitar prodigy named Lenny Breau. By the age of 16, Randy had befriended Breau, who was only a few years older, but already a virtuoso known around Winnipeg for his jazz and country fingerpicking prowess. Lenny Breau took the enthusiastic teen under his wing, showing him intricate picking techniques and introducing him to the music of guitar legends like Chet Atkins. This mentorship left a deep imprint on Randy's playing. Decades later, he would credit those early lessons for the distinctive melodic riffs in his own songs, saying his guitar solos were influenced by his early violin training and Breau's gentle, flowing style. It was an education outside of any classroom, and Randy soaked it up eagerly. Randy's journey into rock stardom truly began with a band that would become a household name, the Guess Who. Back in 1960, as a teenager fresh out of high school, Randy co-founded a group along with a singer named Chad Allen. They originally called themselves Allen and the Silvertones, then Chad Allen and the Reflections, playing local dances and any gig they could find around Winnipeg.
I was lucky enough to join a band that evolved and evolved and evolved, and finally we became part of Allen and the Silvertones, who became Chad Allen and the Reflections, until we got a letter from a lawyer that said, you got to change your name. There was a band called The Reflections, had a hit called Just Like Romeo and Juliet, and we had to change our name. We were named after Cliff Richard and the Shadows, Chad Allen and the Reflections. We played all the Shadows music.
Talking of another one, and it won't be long before you know it's wrong.
The band's lineup and name evolved over the early 60s. At one point they were known as Chad Allen and the Expressions, but the big break came in 1965 with an unexpected hit. That year, they recorded a cover of Shakin' All Over, a snappy rockabilly number, and their record label cleverly sent it out to radio on a plain white label credited only to Guess Who.
We had one microphone we set up and recorded a song called Shakin' All Over, that Johnny Kidd and the Pirates song. We sent it into our record label. They said, "What are you called?" They knew we had a cease and desist. We couldn't use the name The Reflections. We tried to use the name The Expressions. We got a letter from another lawyer in Detroit who said, "You can't use the name Expressions. I represent a band who's signing with Motown. They're called The Expressions." We didn't have a name. So the record label said, "Well, we love this song, Shakin' All Over. We want to put it out." They put Shakin' All Over on a white label. Underneath it, they put Guess Who. Then they started the rumor that Guess Who was a bunch of British musicians like Brian Jones and George Harrison. They couldn't put their name on the record because they were signed with different bands to different record labels. This was cut at a party, and Guess Who was playing. So everybody's buying it, trying to guess who's playing. And it's us guys from Winnipeg, Chad Allen Expressions, and then we were suddenly called Guess Who. This is how we got our name. We didn't pick this name.
The idea was to pique curiosity. Some DJs even wondered if it was a sneaky new track by some British invasion band.
Shaking all over.
The gimmick worked. Shakin' All Over shot to #1 in Canada and even made a dent in the American charts. The name Guess Who accidentally stuck as the band's moniker, and a new chapter began. In the wake of that early success, changes were afoot. Lead singer Chad Allen decided to step aside and return to university, leaving the band in need of a front man. Luckily, Winnipeg was home to a formidable young vocalist by the name of Burton Cummings, whose band, the Deverans, had been vying for local supremacy with Randy's group. Randy and his bandmates invited Burton to join the Guess Who in late 1966, and the chemistry was instantaneous. With Cummings' soulful voice and Bachman's songwriting and guitar prowess, the Guess Who found their classic lineup and a renewed sense of purpose. The group honed their craft touring across Canada, refining their sound and writing new material, hungry to move beyond one-hit wonder status. They notched a string of songs that became Canadian radio staples, but international fame still lay just around the corner. That breakthrough finally arrived in 1969 with the song These Eyes.
These eyes cry every night.
Co-written by Randy and Burton, These Eyes was a lush ballad with a heart-wrenching vocal and a catchy piano riff that showcased Cummings' range and Bachman's pop songwriting sensibility. It became the Guess Who's first major hit in the United States, climbing into the top 10 and selling over 1 million copies. Suddenly, the boys from Winnipeg were in demand south of the border, appearing on American Bandstand and touring widely.
I sit down at the piano and I start to play this.
Hits kept coming as the band churned out memorable tracks. The cheeky rocker, Laughing, the driving No Time, and the jazzy-flavoured B-side, Undone, among others.
Cause you do it to me, it ain't the way it should be. You took away everything I had to put the hurt on me.
By the turn of the new decade, the Guess Who were on a hot streak, but it was a gritty, powerful tune with an unforgettable guitar riff that would push them into the stratosphere. In early 1970, the Guess Who unleashed American Woman, and the world took notice.
American woman, baby said get away.
The song's genesis is the stuff of rock legend. One night at a show in Ontario, Randy broke a guitar string mid-set. As the band took an impromptu break, he stayed on stage to tune up and began idly strumming a heavy, hypnotic riff to test his guitar. That riff immediately grabbed the audience's attention. Chatter in the crowd hushed as heads snapped around toward the stage. Sensing a magic moment, Randy motioned for his bandmates to return and jam along. Burton Cummings wasn't sure what was happening. He shouted, "What is this? What should I sing?" Randy hollered back, "Sing anything, just make something up." On the spot, Burton improvised lyrics to match Randy's bluesy groove. The first words out of his mouth would become iconic. American woman, stay away from me. He sang that line 4 times over the riff, and a powerful new song was born right in front of a live audience. The band knew they had struck gold with that spontaneous jam. Randy later reflected on how striking that opening lyric was. Not a typical love song plea, but more of a warning. Stay away from me. It felt rebellious and raw, perfectly capturing an edgy undercurrent of the times. Polished and released as a single, American Woman became the Guess Who's signature song and one of the defining rock anthems of its era. Propelled by Randy's snarling guitar tone and Burton's gritty, passionate vocals, the track shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the spring of 1970. In doing so, it made history as the first song by a Canadian band to top the US charts, a fact that filled the group with patriotic pride. Many listeners initially took American Woman to be a cheeky slam on the girls stateside, but in truth the song carried a subtle anti-war sentiment. Having toured the United States extensively during the Vietnam War years, the band members had seen the draft's impact on young Americans up close. Randy later explained that the titular American Woman wasn't a literal lady at all, but a symbol, a stand-in for Uncle Sam and that American spirit that was drawing young men into war.
And finally he runs on stage saying, I thought we're taking a break. And I said, sing something, I want to remember this riff, play something. So he played a flute solo, a harmonica solo, a piano solo, and I yelled, sing anything. Because when you sing words to a musical thing, it helps you remember, like Paul McCartney called, yesterday was called Scrambled Eggs. And that's the way he remembered, scrambled eggs, that's what he remembered yesterday, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's how I remember, it was silly lyrics, then you go and write real lyrics. So I yelled, sing anything. And I guess because of this almost being drafted experience and being frightened of the US war and us being healthy Canadians, and the Uncle Sam Wants You, that poster with the stars and striped hat and the Statue of Liberty, all this thing, out came the words, American Woman, stay away from me. And he sang that 4 times. I soloed, he sang that same line 4 times. We're gonna do the song again the next night. And he said, I wrote a couple of more lyrics. Can you wanna hear them? I don't want your war machines. I don't want your ghetto scenes. Great, because we'd seen our first ghetto going down to Alabama and Kentucky and Mississippi. These Winnipeg, there's no ghettos like down south. These poor people living in tin shacks and stuff, picking cotton and stuff.
So the American Woman is the Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty. Wasn't the woman on the street. But the guys at radio in the States, after These Eyes, Laughing, She's Come Undone, No Sugar Tonight, No Time, all these hits, they just played American Woman automatically. They didn't realize it was kind of an anti-war protest song by 4 Canadians that made it to #1.
In his mind, the lyric was a way of saying, we prefer our Canadian women and we don't want your war. Because its protest message was cloaked in metaphor and delivered with a hard rock punch. American Woman slipped past censors and onto the airwaves worldwide, where it remained for weeks. It became a cultural milestone, a Canadian rock song that conquered the world, later famously covered by Lenny Kravitz, and still instantly recognizable decades on.
I don't need your war machines. I don't need your ghetto scenes. Colored lines can hypnotize.
Yet, even as the Guess Who seemed on top of the world, cracks were forming behind the scenes. Years on the road, and the usual rock and roll excesses were taking their toll. Randy, who had adopted the Mormon faith in the mid-60s, lived a clean lifestyle, shunning the typical cocktail of drugs and alcohol that swirled around many rock bands. His sobriety and devout habits increasingly set him apart from some of his bandmates, causing friction. Then there were health issues. During a grueling tour in early 1970, Randy fell seriously ill, eventually diagnosed as a gallbladder attack, and had to miss several shows. Rather than cancel the lucrative dates, the band's management brought in a temporary guitarist to fulfill the commitments. The incident created a rift and left Randy feeling alienated and unsupported at a very vulnerable moment. Finally, in May 1970, at the height of the Guess Who's fame, Randy Bachman made the difficult decision to walk away from the band he had helped create. Looking back, he likened the split to a long divergent path reaching its inevitable end. I'd done 9 years with them. They were into drugs, I wasn't into drugs, Randy reflected plainly. By the time it ended, it felt like it was over anyway. It was a shocking move, leaving a group with a #1 hit still on the charts. And the Canadian media had a field day questioning his sanity. But Bachman felt strongly that he needed to follow his own muse and adhere to his personal principles. He returned home to Winnipeg to recuperate and reassess, a free agent once more. For Burton Cummings and the rest of the Guess Who, it was also a seismic change. They carried on with new members and continued to score a few hits in the years after, but Randy's departure undeniably marked the end of an era. Still only in his mid-20s, Randy Bachman had already experienced the dizzying highs of rock stardom. The question now was, what would he do next? Newly separated from the Guess Who, Randy wasted little time before diving into a fresh musical venture. His first move was to form a band called Brave Belt in 1971, a project that initially reunited him with an old friend, Chad Allen, his former bandmate from the early Guess Who days. Brave Belt's lineup also featured Randy's younger brother Robbie Bachman on drums and a Winnipeg bassist named Fred Turner. The group's sound started off more country rock oriented, reflecting Randy's desire to experiment beyond the pop rock style of the Guess Who. They released a debut album and toured modestly, but major success proved elusive. When Chad Allen stepped away after the first album, the remaining trio forged ahead, with Turner taking on a bigger role in singing and songwriting. By early 1973, they decided a rebranding was in order, something punchier that better fit their evolving, heavier sound. Adopting the new name Bachman Turner Overdrive, often abbreviated simply as BTO, the band embraced a no-nonsense trucker rock image. The name The name itself was inspired partly by a trucking magazine called Overdrive, and of course it highlighted the surnames of the core members, guitarist Randy Bachman and bassist CF Fred Turner. They added another Bachman brother, Tim, on second guitar to solidify the lineup. BTO hit the studio and cranked out their self-titled album in 1973. Initially, it gained only modest attention. Their brand of meat and potatoes rock wasn't an immediate critical darling, but on the road they were winning converts one gig at a time. With Randy's experience and clout from his Guess Who days, he managed the band himself, booking relentless tours across Canada and the United States, often driving through the night to the next show. The hard work paid off as the group's tight, high-energy performances began to build a loyal following. But the real breakthrough for Bachman Turner Overdrive came with their second album, the cheekily titled Bachman Turner Overdrive 2, released later in 1973. BTO's second album also featured a song that would become the band's signature anthem, Taking Care of Business. Randy had actually begun writing this tune years earlier during his Guess Who days under the working title White Collar Worker. It finally came to life one night when BTO was playing a club gig and Fred Turner lost his voice, forcing Randy to sing. Randy improvised by reviving his old idea on the spot, leading the band through a 3-chord riff while he belted out lyrics about the 9-to-5 grind and the memorable hook, taking care of business every day. The crowd went wild, and the band knew they had struck gold. Sure enough, when the studio version was released as a single in 1974, it shot up the charts. With its irresistible guitar riff and rollicking barroom piano, Taking Care of Business became a working-class rock anthem and embedded itself in pop culture. Even the song's title became a catchphrase beyond the music world. Another surprise hit soon followed, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Randy had actually recorded this song as a light-hearted joke, even stuttering Bubba Baby in the lyrics, as a playful nod to his brother Gary's stammer. He never intended it for release, but a savvy record executive heard its catchy charm and insisted it go on the album. To Randy's astonishment, the song shot to #1 in late 1974, the only BTO single to top the US charts.
Seen cowbell yet?
Baby, you just ain't nothing yet.
I'm stuttering because I have a brother who stutters, to tease him. This is not going to go on the album. It's a work track.
Charlie Fatch took it out and heard it. He was the head of the label, and he said, "This is magic. I haven't heard anything like this on the radio. You must put it on the album." I said, "You're nuts. The guitars aren't even in tune. I'm stammering and doing bad Van Morrison impressions. I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't even a song. I haven't even written it. I'm just blurting out lyrics. And he said, no, it's charming. I discovered Maggie May for Rod Stewart, and that shouldn't have been a single because it was like 7.5 minutes long. Believe me, this will be a career song. And I said, what does that mean? He said, you'll be singing it every day of your life, and you'll be grateful to sing it every day of your life. That and Taking Care of Business are going to be your songs.
The very quirk that made it a joke, that goofy stutter, turned out to be its magic. Randy still laughs about how a throwaway track became a worldwide smash. By the mid-1970s, Bachman Turner Overdrive was at full throttle. They toured incessantly across Canada, the United States, and even overseas, bringing their hard-driving sound to arenas packed with eager fans. With multiple gold and platinum albums and hits like Let It Ride, Roll On Down the Highway, and Hey You solidifying their catalogue, BTO were flying high.
20 gold records, 7 platinum records, 8 million albums, 3 million singles. The yardsticks of achievement in the rock music world today. Since their formation in 1973, Bachman Turner Overdrive has become an international rocking household word. It's big, but no bigger than the leader and founder, Randy Bachman.
Their concerts were loud, raucous affairs, complete with a giant illuminated BTO sign on stage. And they fully embraced the rock and roll lifestyle. Though true to form, Randy himself still kept things relatively tame off stage. However, success came with its own set of strains. Years of the road grind and the pressure to keep churning out hits began to wear on the band. Randy, ever the creative leader, was keen to explore different musical directions by the time of their 6th album, Freeways, in 1977. That record had a softer, more experimental edge, which didn't sit well with some fans or even all of his bandmates. Disagreements about the band's future direction grew, and Randy sensed that it might be time for him to move on once again. By 1977, weariness and internal strains led Randy to depart BTO, mirroring his earlier exit from the Guess Who.
I tried to change the band because what we were doing wasn't working anymore. Music was transitionalizing that, and nobody knew where it was going. So you stay the same and die, or you take a chance and maybe hit a home run. I got to first base and got out on seconds. I think Easy Groove's on there.
What's that?
Easy Groove, the song?
Yes.
Yeah. And I was trying to do a Barry White Love Incorporated with the strings, and then I had the horn section and My Wheels Won't Turn. I was just trying to broaden the band and still keep the rock core. Yeah. And if it would have caught on, it would have been a hero, as always is me. Just like this. If this bombs, like I'm an idiot. If this takes off, I'm a hero. It's like anything. You go to the line, put yourself on the line.
He even had to broker an unusual arrangement. The remaining members kept the BTO name to continue touring, while Randy retained rights to his own name. The band carried on a while without him, but without its primary songwriter, their glory days soon faded. After 2 whirlwind tours of duty in hugely successful bands, Randy Bachman found himself in the late 1970s at a personal and professional crossroads. Rather than immediately attempt to form yet another supergroup, he initially focused on carving out a path as a solo artist and an all-around music maker. In 1978, he released an album pointedly titled Survivor. Its cover featured Randy standing strong and alone, a visual statement that despite all the band turmoil, he was still here and still making music. The album produced a minor hit with its title track in Canada, but it was clear that the arena-filling days of BTO were now behind him, at least for the time being. Undeterred, Randy kept experimenting. He formed a new rock outfit called Iron Horse, which put out a couple of albums around 1979 and 80, even scoring a top 40 Canadian single with Sweet Lou Louise.
My sweet Louise, my sweet Louise, sweet, sweet, sweet Louise, my sweet Louise.
It wasn't the second coming of BTO, but it allowed him to keep creating and performing on a more modest scale, which seemed to suit him just fine at the time. The early 1980s saw Randy continuing to try different musical avenues. He briefly assembled a band named Union, which, as fate would have it, reunited him with former Guess Who lead vocalist Burton Cummings for one album. Around this time, Randy was also honing his skills behind the scenes, producing tracks for other artists and writing songs for up-and-coming acts. He effectively became a respected elder statesman of Canadian rock, even if his own name wasn't topping the charts during those years. Then, like clockwork, The classic rock revival wave came calling in the late 80s and early 90s, and Randy's past glories circled back around in a big way. Decades after his departure, Randy would occasionally reunite with Burton Cummings and other former bandmates for special Guess Who reunion concerts. One particularly successful reunion was a cross-Canada tour in 2000 that culminated in a live album, proving that the old magic was still intact. Night after night, audiences thrilled to see Randy and Burton sharing the stage again, performing classics like American Woman and These Eyes with undiminished energy. The camaraderie between them was palpable, and it became clear that their partnership still had creative fuel. In fact, these live reunions inspired Randy and Burton to collaborate on new projects together beyond the Guess Who. In 2006, the duo released the Bachman Cummings Songbook, a compilation highlighting their co-written hits, and followed it up with Jukebox in 2007, an album of covers paying tribute to the music that influenced them as teenagers.
Are you ready, Rand?
I'm ready. This looks like your living room that we wrote the songs in.
Together, they're responsible for some of the biggest hit songs in Canada's history. But the relationship between Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings has not always been smooth, with their many breakups and makeups, so it's always a treat to see them perform together. This time around, for the first time in over a decade, they got together in support of a glittering gala really benefiting Canada's Walk of Fame.
Touring as Bachman Cummings, they brought a mix of nostalgia and fresh energy to audiences across Canada and beyond, celebrating a partnership that had begun decades prior in Winnipeg. The sight of Randy and Burton together on stage, joking, harmonising, and tearing through those classic tunes was something many fans had only dreamed of during the years the two weren't on speaking terms. Their reconciliation and musical reunion became a feel-good story in Canadian music, proof that time can heal old wounds and that great songs truly are timeless. Meanwhile, Randy also rekindled his working relationship with Fred Turner. The two hadn't been in a band together since Randy's BTO exit in 1977, but they had stayed friends. In 2010, they officially reunited as a duo under the banner Bachman and Turner, releasing a self-titled album of brand new rock material. They even embarked on a world tour that took them from Sweden's rock festivals to London's Hyde Park to their hometown of Winnipeg, belting out BTO favourites like Roll On Down the Highway alongside new songs. For Randy, it was a thrill to once again share the stage with Fred's booming bass and vocals, proving that even in their 60s they could still rock as hard as ever. Beyond these reunions and collaborations, Randy Bachman kept busy in countless other ways. He became something of a musical raconteur, especially through his work in broadcasting. Starting in 2005, Randy hosted a weekly radio show on CBC called Vinyl Tap.
And now we're going to give you the song.
CBCmusic.ca presents
Basically changed our lives forever.
Randy Bachman's Vinyl Tap Tour. Every song tells a story. Randy Bachman weaves together the iconic hits of the Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive. Hear the stories behind all those hits.
We hadn't really broken big yet. We had, local radio hits.
Randy Bachman's Vinyl Tap Tour.
In this program, he spun classic rock tracks and regaled listeners with behind-the-scenes tales from his own career and those of his famous friends. Speaking in his warm, familiar tone, he would share anecdotes about everything from meeting the Beatles to jamming with Les Paul as a teen. Vinyl Tap ran for over 16 years and became a much-loved Saturday night tradition on Canadian airwaves. Randy's natural storytelling ability shone brightly on the show. Each episode felt like a cozy fireside chat with a rock legend, full of humour and humility. Although CBC ended the show in 2021, Randy hinted that he wasn't done yet. He planned to take Vinyl Tap to another platform or perhaps launch it as a podcast, ever eager to keep the music and stories flowing. His later solo projects also saw him exploring the full gamut of his influences. He delved into jazz, paid homage to his guitar hero George Harrison on 2018's By George, and even cranked out some hard-hitting blues rock on Heavy Blues in 2015, a project that featured guest appearances from the likes of Neil Young and Peter Frampton. Through it all, Randy's curiosity and passion for music remained undimmed. In interviews, he mused that he still feels like that kid who hears music in his head all the time, always chasing the next great riff or melody. After more than 6 decades of making music, Randy Bachman simply doesn't slow down. He keeps on taking care of business, one song at a time.
Can you not stop working? Are you just a junkie? Is that the problem?
I don't think I've worked a day in my life.
No, I know you have always loved this.
Over the years, Randy has accumulated a long list of honours, both in Canada and abroad. He and his bandmates have been inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, the Guess Who in the early 1980s and Bachman Turner Overdrive in 2014. Randy himself holds the unique distinction of a double induction into Canada's Walk of Fame, first as part of the Guess Who in 2001, and again as a solo artist in 2012.
I think it's very important for Canada to have its Walk of Fame. There's a lot of pride here, and I very much feel that.
Thank you all. May the ride continue and keep the rock rolling.
He is also an Officer of the Order of Canada, appointed in 2008, and holds the Order of Manitoba, reflecting his status as one of the province's favourite sons.
I know that Bachman Turner Overdrive was a role model for a lot of artists who followed. It gave Canadians the chance to say, we can do that too.
Recognition for Randy's songwriting prowess has been equally prominent. In 2005, he and Burton Cummings were welcomed into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame, celebrating their iconic partnership. Randy has collected multiple Juno Awards over the decades, and the Performing Rights Society SOCAN has honoured him with Lifetime Achievement Awards and several SOCAN Classic Awards for his most played hits. And in a charming civic tribute, the city of Winnipeg even named an overpass after Bachman Turner Overdrive, a literal landmark to commemorate their place in hometown history.
A special ceremony was held in downtown Winnipeg as the city officially named a portion of the Disraeli Bridge Freeway behind me to Bachman Turner Overdrive, in honor of the legendary Winnipeg rock band.
Each accolade, big or small, underscores the lasting mark Randy Bachman has left on music and Canadian culture. Behind the public persona of the guitar-wielding rock star, Randy Bachman's personal life has been a journey all its own. He married young. In 1966, Randy tied the knot with his first wife, Lorraine Stevenson. The couple had 6 children together over the course of their 11-year marriage. One of their sons, Tal Bachman, would even follow in his father's musical footsteps, scoring a global pop hit in 1999 with She's So High. Randy has often spoken with pride about Tal's success, joking that for a while in the late 90s he was known around town as Tal's dad, more than as Randy himself. Randy's daughter Lorelei also became a singer-songwriter, proving that the musical gene runs strong in the Bachman clan. In 1982, a few years after his divorce from Lorraine, Randy remarried, this time to Canadian singer Denise McCann. They had one child together and made their home on Salt Spring Island, a serene artist haven off Canada's west coast for many years. Although Randy and Denise eventually separated in 2011, they shared a passion for music throughout their marriage. Family has always been central to Randy's life, even as he spent long stretches on tour. He's now a grandfather many times over, with over 24 grandchildren at last count, and delights in seeing new generations groove to taking care of business at family gatherings. Randy's younger brothers also played roles in his musical story. Robbie and Tim Bachman were bandmates in BTO. He speaks of his late brothers with great affection, cherishing the time they had playing music together. Throughout all the highs and lows, Randy's guiding light has been his love of music. He remains a fan at heart, still in awe of the artists he grew up idolizing and genuinely thrilled to meet younger musicians who have been influenced by his work. His friendship with Neil Young, for instance, stretches back to their teen days in Winnipeg. Neil once said that Randy's early band was the best group in Winnipeg back in the day, and credited Randy as a big influence on his own guitar playing. To hear such praise from a fellow icon is a testament to Randy Bachman's impact. Randy likes to tell the story of how he once gifted Neil an old guitar, and, in return, Neil happily laid down a scorching guest solo on one of Randy's recent tracks. A full circle moment for 2 kids from Winnipeg who made it big. Randy is also refreshingly candid about the music business itself. He's seen it all, from the frenzied fandom of the late 60s to the corporate rock machine of the 70s and the shifting digital landscape of today.
Labels now, I've got some new artists that I'm trying to help out. The labels won't do anything. They say do it yourself. Put up little 6-second clips on Vine, make them longer, and then refer to your YouTube. And once you build up a following of 300,000 views or something, then come and see us. So they want you to do all the work. They don't have any development money. And the way it is now with the internet, you almost don't need a record label. You just start your own website, you do your own YouTubes, you start playing gigs, you get a fan following, everybody twits and tweeters and Facebooks each other and everything, and then suddenly you're selling a couple of 100,000 or millions of records, and then a record label calls you saying, we want to take you around the world.
He acknowledges the mistakes and naivete of his early days, chuckling about how the Guess Who signed some questionable contracts that left them shortchanged. But he harbours no bitterness. Instead, he often imparts wisdom to younger artists about balancing artistry and business.
I could go to any country in the world, pick up a guitar at a music store and play it, and have immediately contacted people. It's the greatest instrument in the world. It's the only instrument you embrace. You put your arms around it, you hold it next to you, your heart and soul, your chest, you breathe it, you can take it around the world. There's big, there's small guitars. It's with you all the time. You can take it everywhere you go. It's like it's your mouth in a way, it's your hands, it's how you speak. So with going into a room of strangers, I can walk in a room of strangers and play something on a guitar and they'll go, wow, can you show me that? Or else go, wow. To a 14-year-old kid, can you show me that? I've been hearing that all my life. I don't know how to do that. And he'd go, oh, it's so simple. It's on these 3 strings. Oh, yeah, great. You can always learn something from anybody on a guitar. You can always teach something. It is a universal language. It's I think the most universal instrument in the world. I've heard there's like 1 for every household in the world. So for those who don't have them, I have 400. You know what I mean? For those guys that don't have them in their house, like you with your watches, exactly.
At heart, Randy's philosophy is simple. Play because you love it. As he once put it, I've been given a gift to make music, and that's what I'll keep doing as long as I'm able. The minute it stops being fun, that's when I'll pack it in. Well into his 70s now, he clearly hasn't packed it in. If anything, his calendar seems as full as ever, between touring, recording projects, and media appearances. In recent years, one of the most poignant chapters of Randy's life unfolded not on stage, but through an international act of kindness. Back in the late 1970s, at the height of BTO's fame, Randy's cherished 1957 Gretsch guitar, the very one on which he wrote American Woman and countless other songs, was stolen from a hotel in Toronto. He was devastated. I cried for 3 days, he admitted when recalling that moment. That guitar had been his trusty companion since he was a teenager, and its loss left a hole that nothing seemed to fill. He spent decades searching pawn shops and scanning auction lists for it, but to no avail.
He went on to found Bachman Turner Overdrive, and even more hits composed and played on this orange 1957 Gretsch guitar. Until in 1976, it was stolen from a hotel.
It was like the end of my life at that time, because I had written 6 Guess Who million sellers, 6 BTO millions, and all their albums, and played them on with that guitar.
You had a period of mourning.
I had a period of not sleeping for like a week, like just crying and mourning, yes.
Amazingly, in 2022, a determined fan using the power of the internet tracked down the long-lost Gretsch halfway across the world in Japan, where it had ended up in the hands of a local musician who had no idea of its history. In a heartwarming exchange facilitated by the Canadian government, Randy flew to Tokyo to meet the musician and swapped another vintage Gretsch as a trade to get his old friend back. At the Canadian Embassy in Tokyo, Randy cradled that bright orange guitar again after 45 years.
Fast forward to 2020, and a man called William Long.
I'm thrilled to have played a role in this story.
At the start of the pandemic, Long was stuck at home in Vancouver and decided to launch an online search for the stolen guitar.
I heard Randy's interview on YouTube, and he said it had a small mark down by the main control knob.
He viewed thousands of images looking for that distinctive mark.
And eventually, one popped up in Tokyo at a vintage guitar shop, and it was a perfect match.
This whole thing is a dream come true, he said, beaming with joy. He even performed American Woman on it that day, his fingers finding their old positions with ease. It was as if a missing piece of his past had been restored, bringing his story beautifully full circle.
It's really nice to hang up 1 or 2 gold records in a room. I guess it's great to win an Oscar and an Emmy, and it's really great to have a gold or platinum disc. It really is it's a milestone that not many people can achieve. But I have so many now that it's almost embarrassing. I only allow certain people into my room to see it because it is a real ego show-off thing to say, look what I got. And I have about half in my closet.
Randy Bachman's legacy in music is profound and multifaceted. First and foremost, he will forever be celebrated as a hitmaker, a craftsman behind songs that have become woven into the fabric of classic rock. From the rebellious grit of American Woman to the jubilant chug of Taking Care of Business, his compositions have transcended generations. It's not uncommon to hear a teenager strumming the riff to You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet on a guitar today, just as their parents or even grandparents might have done in years past. His songs have been featured in countless films, television shows and adverts, giving them a life beyond the radio. He often jokes that while he wrote music out of love, it certainly doesn't hurt that those enduring hits have helped take care of his business financially through licensing and royalties. Beyond the songs themselves, Randy's influence is evident in the many artists who cite him as a role model. He was a trailblazer for Canadian rock on the world stage. Before the Guess Who's breakthrough, the idea of a Canadian band topping the US charts seemed almost fanciful. Randy and his bandmates broke that barrier, inspiring the next wave of Canadian talent to believe that they too could reach a global audience. His success showed that being from Winnipeg or Toronto or Vancouver was not a limitation, but rather a unique flavour to bring to the table. When Bachman Turner Overdrive took the mantle and achieved international stardom in the 1970s, it further cemented Canada's place on the rock map. It's telling that when BTO were inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame, younger rockers lined up to pay tribute, acknowledging how BTO's no-frills, high-octane approach influenced the hard rock and metal scenes that followed. Peers and collaborators speak of Randy with genuine respect and affection. Burton Cummings has referred to Bachman as his brother in song, emphasizing how the music they wrote together feels immortal. Cummings credits Randy's disciplined work ethic in the early days for pushing him to become a better songwriter. And of course, figures like Neil Young have acknowledged Randy's guitar prowess and those early influences he provided. Perhaps what endears Randy Bachman most to those who know him is not just his talent, but his humility and approachability. For all the platinum records on his wall, he remains at heart the down-to-earth guy from Winnipeg, who'd be just as happy chatting about his favourite guitar licks as he would be headlining a concert. Back in his hometown, Randy's legacy is visible in more than just awards and plaques. It's alive in the vibrant music scene that still thrives there. Winnipeg has produced an outsized number of celebrated musicians, and people often point to the era of the Guess Who and BTO as the spark that ignited that flame. Randy himself has invested time in nurturing young talent through songwriting workshops, mentorship programs, and even inviting promising young bands to open for him on tour. He's keenly aware that music is a continuum, a torch to be passed on. And he has passed it on not just to his own children, but to Canada's musical youth at large, encouraging them to find their own voice just as he did. As a final reflection, Randy Bachman's story is one of perseverance, passion, and an almost childlike love for the craft of music. He's seen the peaks of fame and the valleys of industry change, but through it all he's kept strumming, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively. In conversation, Randy often circles back to gratitude. Gratitude for the fans who stuck with him across different bands and eras, gratitude for the bandmates who shared in the journey, and gratitude for the songs that chose him as much as he chose them. At this stage in his life, Randy is a living legend of rock, an icon in Canada and a respected figure worldwide. Yet he carries his legacy lightly. He'll flash a warm smile and modestly deflect the praise, perhaps cracking a joke about still needing to practice his guitar. But when he steps on stage, plugs in that guitar, often the very one returned to him after so many years, and rips into the opening chords of American Woman or Taking Care of Business, the roar of the crowd says it all. Randy Bachman's music has left an indelible imprint on the world, and his tale, From Winnipeg's neighborhood halls to the annals of rock history is a documentary-worthy journey of a true rock and roll survivor, still doing what he loves and still taking care of business every day. If you want to see how another working-class rock band from the same era found success, despite the music industry trying to stop them, click the thumbnail on screen